following the spiritual path as we're doing is an exciting process. It's definitely not boring. And meditative practice should be done all through the day. And what I mean by that is just be aware of where you're misidentifying, even with the subtlest things. For example, you give yourself the idea that you're bored. And it's just an idea, and you'll follow it. You'll become bored. And you'll fall into a kind of tamasic state. So in India, they have categories that we fall into generally as a group, as humanity. Some of us are very ragistic. The word is ragistic, rajas, which means that we're always running around, very busy, are not happy unless we're totally jazzed by the world and doing something, and our energy is always for that. In other words, you're hyped up for that. Then there's the people that are tamasic. Tamasic is the lowest energy vibe, low energy. They don't really feel like doing anything. They're boredom would fit into that category, but they're just low energy. Tamas, rajas, and sattva. Sattva is the spiritual expression or being, which is pretty much engaged with life, but very, how do we say, alert, engaged, present, and not given to ruminations of the mind. That's a spiritual, and that's spiritual, and it has a high vibe, a really high vibe, high vibration. And no matter what you're doing, whether you're doing something out in the world or at home, everything, your being is pretty much soft, but alert and engaged. You could be washing dishes and being in a very sattvic mode. Humility is very much part of all that. And what you're doing is you're opening yourself up to the infinite. You want to be able to feel something more than this world. You don't want to clutter it up where your mind is just like, oh, this game that I'm playing, or one thing after another, filling life with stuff to do. But being able and comfortable being by yourself and doing nothing in particular. You could fall asleep, that's fine, but the point is not to get off into this kind of a tamasic state. But I have to say that God does everything perfectly in all of this. And if it's supposed to be like that right now, that's the way it is. We're not the doer, and I'm really finding that out. We're not the doer. something is pulling the strings behind the scenes, and it may seem as though nothing's happening right now, and something's happening. Something is always happening, and I'm very much aware of it as stuff happening inwardly. I'm fully engaged in the spiritual. Come on in, Desiree. I'm fully engaged and excited about the spiritual journey. But inspiration comes from the self, comes from God. Anyway, so if you're not inspired right now, that's okay. That's okay, just stick with it. Just stick with it. I mean, God is in charge. Our being is vaster than this solid, seemingly solid reality. There's a lot going on deep within. A lot going on. Your day should be filled with noticing what idea are you following at the moment. Are you giving enough space to silence, inner silence, to enjoyment? The spiritual process is never dull or boring. There's always something going on. We have to become aware of that.
You can see.
We're all perfect, by the way. We're all perfect.
Yes, you are. You settled me right. Perfect.
We're all perfect. I mean, the only difficulty lies in that we tend to focus on the externals, and we don't give a chance for the inner being to come forth. The inner being meaning the self. The self is very quiet. It doesn't want to impose so much. But if you want liberation, if you want enlightenment and freedom, then it will slip up for you. You will start to feel intensely moved, if that's what you want. So, I don't know if this is an aside, but anyway, I have been talking to you about waking up in the morning and not feeling quite right. And all I had to do was almost instantaneous. Switch that mindset to another channel. Just immediate switch it. It's hard to explain, but it's a moment of silence and consciousness where you realize that there is this, which is the world, and it's impinging. And then you can switch the channel and be still about it. Be still about it, and it actually changes your experience. And as it happened, Vasu, he has a finesse or some kind of power that he will put something that I enjoy on television. It's not from television, it's from the YouTube. Buddha at the gas pump interviews between spiritually awakening people and Rick Archer who gives the interview. And he had somebody on there that's going around the world right now, a lady that's training people in corporations about how she's making it a very tangible thing. Instead of having to go through a long process of spiritual liberation and practice and all of that, she says you can just switch it just like that. And it's interesting that that's exactly what I've been doing. You can switch. The minute you realize something is off, you can just shift. Very quiet, inside. Move it. It does take practice. And she's instructing people in this technique. She's trying to bring spirituality into the mundane world, into corporations, into people that normally are not turned on by spiritual things at all. So she's making it a kind of a scientific, here's how you do it. However, that doesn't bring you ultimately to liberation. You have to look at where the tendencies lie. Where do you lie? Where do you actually get trapped and come around and around again with the same thing? It's called a tendency or samskara, which is an impression from past lives that keeps repeating itself over and over. We want to be free from the suffering of repetition over and over, and then there's that still point that you can be brought to by the fact that you're suffering. Grace will bring you to that still point where you realize that none of what you're going through has anything to do with you. We take it on, we think it belongs to us, that we're this way or we're that way, and it's not true. And we really realize that. That's grace indicating that you don't have to buy into what you think you are. You can just switch on the spot and don't go there. And that's why meditative practice through the entire day is going to bring us, strengthen that ability to not only just not react or jump, but also in more subtle ways, where it just has to do with you and yourself. It always has to do with you and yourself. It has nothing to do with anybody else, anyway. But little things like, you feel a little depressed, feel a little off. You can sense it. And so what we do, usually most people don't know to do anything about it and just fall into that groove. Right away, when you sense it, you can switch it. This is an inner kind of a trick. I don't think it's just the wrong word, but it's a power, it's an ability to change, just slightly. Change retune the radio, move the dial slightly. We have tremendous capability for doing things like that. Very subtle things. If something is a very heavy-duty samskara tendency that's built into the software here, inside the mind, that will need some kind of knocks on the head. I mean, knocks. Where you're forced to shift. you're forced to shift. You're inundated with a particular samskara, a tendency, and it's very big, and it's very much engulfing your view, or your perception, or your essence, your light. You're walking into a dark room, and it's very dark, and you can't see the light. That's a very big, what you call a samskara, or it could have nothing to do with you. It may not be your own tendency. It may be just simply something that's going on in the universe, in the environment, like weather, like I said before, like a cloud coming over, and you can't feel the light, or you can't get to it to help you. In that situation, if it's something very extreme like that, and you don't have any power for changing, what I have found is that, okay, so you go through it, and it has an upside to it, a beautiful upside. It takes you to a point, and then you go over. It doesn't stay the same, and does not stay the same. You go past that point, which is very, very difficult. And then you find yourself in a wonderful space, and then you can also realize that whatever you went through had nothing to do with you. It was simply like weather. Whether it's coming from you, from a tendency, or it's coming from the universe at large. Had nothing to do with you, and it had nothing to do with you having to get rid of anything. It's kind of what it does is it moves you into a timeless place. From time and space and all of what's happening within that time and space, you're shifted to a place of timelessness. Timeless and spaceless. And you kind of vanish from the spot. Everything is totally calm. Nothing ever happened. Nothing ever happened. And then you realize something very profound. That there is a tendency to think that it belongs to you, be it a tendency or whatever you're experiencing. That you own it, that you have to change. Rama used to say, years and years ago, he said, it's like playing a good game of tennis. You get these zingers that come over the fence, over the net, and, can you turn around and hit that ball back? It's a good game of tennis. It's like being, having a black belt in karate. Being able to transmute or change that. But even if you're not capable of it happens to you by the grace of the self. It does transmute. It changes. I don't expect anybody to really understand what I'm saying because I haven't really, all these years, talked about it in this way or realized it in this way. That it didn't belong. It didn't belong. It doesn't really touch the essence of who we are. It belongs to the realm of illusion. All the stuff that we go through belongs to a kind of a dreamlike state. Our inner being is untouched. Is really, truly untouched. And you can go through something like this and then feel, gee, nothing really happened. Nothing really happened. All that storm and all of this that went on, it's like going through a storm and coming out the other end, and it's as if nothing had happened. So let's listen to Rupert. You know, these people, when I listen to them, some of them I really resonate with. Rupert I really resonate with. Muji I really resonate with. Adishanti I do too, totally understand what he's saying. But Rupert here, so cool. But the way he came around to self-realization was different than what I realized so many years ago. My realization was more like I'm free. His realization was that I'm the very awareness. The very awareness. I'm aware. And that was, it suddenly realized.
That which is aware of my experience. I'm aware of my thoughts, I'm aware of my feelings, I'm aware of the sound of the waves, the sight of the sea, I am aware of the taste of tea, I am aware of the sight of this room. I am aware, I am aware, I am aware. It pervades all experience, it's ever present in all experience. Why it took me 20 years to recognize this simple fact, what I essentially am is simply the presence of awareness. I can't tell you, it was just the preparation that I needed. I was busy trying to still my mind, those kind of practices. So at some point this, first of all, this recognition presented itself to me very clearly. Simply, I am that which is aware of my experience. That with which all objective experience is known, but which itself cannot be known as an object. And it was so simple, it's so obvious. You don't need 20 years of preparation to understand that. You could say this to anybody on the street, and if they were open and willing to explore their experience, it doesn't need to take long. Then the second question, which was in some ways an inevitable follow-on from this first discovery, is, okay, what I essentially am is awareness. But what is the nature of this awareness? It seems to me to be located in here, doing the thinking, looking at it through my eyes, in here doing the feeling. So the second exploration is not as straightforward as the first. The first is relatively simple. Yes, it is obvious that what we call I, what we have been calling I all our life, is that which is aware of all this changing experience. And it seems so obvious to us to begin with that this I, this aware being, this presence of awareness, is located in. It's obvious that whatever it is that is seeing the world must be located behind my eyes. I close them, I don't see the world anymore. So it seems to be perfectly logical to believe and, more importantly, feel that I lives in here, behind the eyes, behind the ears, in here, feeling. So this investigation into the nature of awareness or consciousness is another stage, or a second stage after the recognition I am awareness. And this took some time. It was over a period of a few years. when I first met my teacher, there was this very intense, I was involved with it every spare moment I had. The exploration was, what is the nature of the knowing with which I know my experience? There seems to be evidence for it being temporary and finite. In other words, there seems to be evidence that it shares the destiny and the limits of the body. But when I look for that evidence, when I look at the non-objective experience of simply being aware, I don't find any objective qualities there. It's an undoubted experience. Each of us now knows that I am aware. So the experience of being aware is an experience. But it's a unique experience because it has no objective qualities. It's not like a thought or a feeling or a perception. And being without objective qualities, it has no limits, either in time or space. So what I'm describing now is I'm describing it rationally. But the discovery is an experiential discovery, that what I essentially am, the very knowing which is now knowing all of this experience, itself has no limits. And that is the freedom from the sense of limitation, both in time, that is the freedom from the belief I was born and I will die, and the freedom from the limits in space, that is, I am not finite, I am infinite. And the experiential consequence of this discovery is that I don't need anything. I'm complete. I'm full in myself. And so this puts an end to the sense of lack. So these two discoveries, I am not located in time. I do not appear or disappear. I was not born, I will not die. That puts an end to the fear of death. And this discovery that I am complete by myself, I, consciousness, don't need anything from the mind, the body, or the world. This puts an end to our sense of lack. And these are the two essential feelings that define the separate self, the fear of death and the sense of lack. And all the separate self, the imaginary separate self's activities are designed to allay the sense of fear and fulfill the sense of lack. That is what everybody who believes themselves to be a separate self is doing in their lives. So this recognition that what I am is ever present and has no limits, it provides a new basis from which to think, from which to feel, from which to relate, perceive and act. And that's the discovery, I am awareness. It's a discovery. It doesn't develop. I am obviously that which is aware. And then the recognition that which is aware has no limits is also it's a non-objective experience. It's a recognition. Oh yes, of course, it's so obvious. What I essentially am, the knowing with which I know my experience, is unlimited. That's a recognition. You can't go back from that. However, there is then another process, which is an endless process, which is how to live this understanding, this feeling understanding. How does that affect the way we think, the way we feel, the way we perceive, the way we act, the way we relate to other people? And this is the third stage, which really goes on forever. This colonization of the entire realm of experience, thoughts, feelings, sensations, activities, relationships, perceptions. That's an endless process, and it's really the art of life, is to live life, all realms of our life, in a way that is consistent with and expression of this understanding.
Very good. Anyone have difficulty understanding that? No difficulty. That's good. Huh?
I'm there.
There, that's good. You find young. Well, it's not, it's more than just understanding what he's saying. I think where you're coming from is, well, but I haven't experienced it, what he's talking about. Meaning, you haven't got to a place where you're free, or as he realized, that he's the awareness. We can speak of it in different ways. I didn't come around to saying, well, I'm the awareness. I just felt free. I felt free.
Okay, when you say you're aware, does this mean you are like aware of what's going on in your life, or just aware
No,
of anything that goes on?
no. You are the awareness itself. You are the awareness. Because you are aware of thoughts, right? That you have thoughts in your mind. But who's aware of the thoughts? Where is that awareness coming from?
Self.
From the self. But it's upstream of the thoughts. Your awareness itself is what it's saying. I am aware. I am awareness. I am awareness. The very definition of what I am is awareness, consciousness, the awareness itself. That's a marvelous discovery. It took him 20 years to come to that. It took me 30 years to come to that realization. And he says exactly what I said when I went through the whole thing. I said, why would it have to take me 20 years? You didn't take 20 years.
Well, you probably did it in 1 year, right?
Or less.
Or less.
Maybe 1 day. It's
Oh,
remarkable. It's remarkable. But then he goes on to say, but it's an endless process to integrate that knowledge. To integrate that knowledge into life. How do you live your life? Do you live it from that place of freedom and knowing that you're infinite and limitless awareness? Or do you live it as if you were limited and in reaction to this or that? Subscribing to, he says, it's an endless process. My teacher, Naomi, is saying essentially that it's not an endless process. So this is something that I have to work out. He says there's the absolute, and there's nothing in between. There's no endless process of coming to self-realization. But I think what he's saying here is you love the realization of that infiniteness. You love expressing that reality of purity. You love expressing God. And that's endless. You just endlessly love it in your life and how you express your life. That's what he's saying. I don't think it's discontinuous with what Naomi is saying. You just love to express the reality, the essence of love. and acceptance and wisdom to allow whatever, to always come from that place. Always. Never to be impatient. Because you've been there and you know how it is to be impatient. So why judge someone else for being impatient? You've been there. You have the empathy because you've been there and done that. And it's because of that you can bring compassion and love
To yourself or to other people?
to others and to yourself.
You have to do it first for yourself.
You have to do it. You have to have the empathy and the realization that you don't like being impatient. You don't like having these feelings. That you want to express God just the way God is. God is never impatient. Can you imagine? Not that there's another being out there, but the very essence of reality doesn't have that kind of quality. It has no qualities at all. If we can say it has a quality, it has the quality of love as its essence. But I do like what he says a lot. But I can't use the idea of being awareness itself. But I kind of can when I really, get what he's saying, the way he came around to it. That your awareness, if you're awareness, how are you going to get trapped by anything? You're just the awareness. See what he's saying? And I came around to feeling the freedom in kind of the same vein, the same way. Freedom. But then finally having gotten free, as it were, you now have to live it. It's kind of like another phase. It's like you extricated yourself from the bulk of feeling you were somebody put upon or had to defend yourself, meaning you didn't feel like you needed to defend anything. There's nobody there to defend, essentially is what you feel. Nobody there to defend. That's the freedom that I recognize. Who's to defend? Why? Why bother? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Mantra. So, Joe?
So then, if you become like a hermit, you're totally by yourself.
Why would you want to do that? Hermits don't really, if you become a hermit, you won't have the opportunity to see how you are with ego in relationship to others.
Because they all by themselves,
They're not being,
But they can be
Troubled.
busy too.
huh?
Hermits can be busy
They can.
entertaining themselves.
How?
I've seen that by doing the things they like to do. Hermit to me, the interpretation
Yeah.
is someone who doesn't exist outside of their residence or their,
Okay, so they are doing stuff, or that they're alive
Yes.
and they're not living in a cave. Well, see, if you're working on disidentifying with a sense of ego, it's more difficult when you don't find yourself relating to anything, and you're just by yourself with yourself.
Is that good or bad?
Well,
That's
I
no
don't,
good.
this is the most interesting thing. I met somebody in Tiruvannamalai who went into seclusion for 7 years came out in the world, found out he still had an ego, and then went back into seclusion, like solitary confinement, for another 7 years. So he was working in some fashion that I don't know. But to him, it was his way, finally, although you take yourself wherever you are, if you don't have, I don't know,
Just as I am.
you know, wherever you are, you take yourself with you. I don't know, I just don't know how you can arrive at egolessness when you don't have anything to interact with. Maybe it was an inner thing that was going on with inner beings. Who knows what this guy, but he's teaching over there now. He was a German. And definitely he's free living, very much so. So, but what we really mean about being a hermit? I'm not a hermit.
No.
I have to be
We have to be okay with
I'm a little confused.
Yes.
Okay. It was really good that I came today. My situation that I'm in right now with my husband, I take my psychology tools out and I use them there. And I have felt that by using those tools, it has freed me. But what you presented of being free, which one am I using?
which freedom are you feeling? What we talk about?
I'll give you an example. Personality change without control.
Who?
My husband,
Yeah.
you know, he might say something and it's irrational, but because I'm the same one, I realize it and it's hitting me, you know, but I can't take it personal,
No.
okay? So I feel I'm able, oh, that didn't hurt me because I know where it's coming from.
Yes.
And the freedom that we're talking about, is that the wisdom of knowing that this attack is not coming personally at me? Or is it the freedom of thyself that, do you understand?
Yes. The
I'm
freedom,
confused.
the freedom I'm talking about is the realization that you're not a person.
Okay.
That you're not really a person. So with that understanding, you can't be really affected by anything. But on the other hand, it kind of comes to the same thing, because if you realize, I mean, I'm in a similar situation. When you're dealing with something that's irrational.
Right. When do you
You
turn
can't
the
really
switch
get
from one
upset.
to the, yes.
You can't really get
No.
upset because it's irrational.
But see, I have
So
the
this is-
wisdom to know not to get upset.
Yeah, we get that wisdom.
Very good.
It's easy to
Yeah.
get that wisdom, I think, but then I'm not telling the truth. It's not that it's not that black and white.
No, because
it's
there are
personal.
times that it's just when they hit you right in the face and you do get upset.
Yeah, there is
Mhm.
this irrationality can be quite, how do we say it? Has a kind of intelligence about it. You can take the screws out and do something like that. So, but it's all coming from the place of irrationality, so it's easier to accept that and to allow that. And after so much of it, that's all you have is just don't, you've had a lot of practice. You just let it go, you just don't pay attention to it. It's too irrational and too repetitive and too insane. So you just let it go. You have to.
So the switches are there.
The switches are there that you can just
Mm-hmm.
nothing, not affected. In one ear and out the other. In one ear. Each one of us has to find a way to this freedom. But as you progress in the path, you find that you really are not even a person. That's what they're talking about in self-realization. You're not even a person that would get upset about this or that. You're not even a person that would get upset about this or that. I mean,
I keep looking at the rose because my husband and I were on the patio sprucing up, and I said, do not cut that rose. I said it like 3 times. I said, because I just want to watch the petals fall. The rose buds, the ones that haven't completely opened, cut the wrong stem. I turned my back. What did he do? He goes, oh look, I brought you a beautiful flower. The one I told him not to cut 10 seconds ago. And I just,
yeah,
Breathe.
you see what I mean? Yeah. It's a difficult thing.
yeah. Mm-hmm. There are minor things now where before I used to blow until I walked this journey
Yeah.
and I learned it's not it. No, he's not doing that.
No,
purposely,
no.
you know. And I graciously accepted it and did as he said, put it in her face. And I did.
Wow.
We're all so different, really,
Yes.
because I have no problem with cutting off a flower and bringing it to Satsang. It doesn't, well, there's so many of them.
Well, that's, yeah. I only had one and I just wanted to see
And
it
they
fall
all-
on the ground. There's something beautiful about color on the ground
Really?
for me, and I just wanted to see it. And so I requested that, and
Maybe if you wouldn't have said anything,
Yeah, well,
maybe he might not have done anything.
yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't either, but it was cut after 3 requests.
Oh, okay, well, the next time you see something and you don't want it cut or anything, don't say
Yeah.
anything.
And quietly inside I go, foggy moment, foggy moment.
foggy moment.
That's what we call it, when we can't think rational. He'll tell me the fog's in.
But the thing about that, Alice, is that we always try to look at our experience from a higher level, so that it's a useful thing for you to learn non-attachment to the beauty of the rose. It's an opportunity. We see life like that. We see life like that as an opportunity whenever you're getting ready to get smashed by something with a zinger. Oh, so here's the opportunity to be transcendent and to smile and to give it up and to experience how wonderful that is to remain in that place of embracing and acceptance. You know, that's how we want to live our life from now on till it comes to a physical end, this body. Great opportunity we have. That's why somebody that says, I'll be bored, just said that to me after not going to ping pong. And not you, Alice. Not
Well, I
you.
said it, you know.
No,
No,
it
but
wasn't
someone
you.
said it to
I
her.
know, I know.
Somebody said it to me not too long, aren't you bored? Because I gave up ping pong.
Gee, that's all there is to life, huh? That's boring.
I said, no, there's always something happening, I said to her. Each time, there's always something happening.
It's not boring.
It's them, it's not you.
You know, it's most everybody, most all of us, we live outside. We live out there.
So we have to come in.
We come in and find out that there's much more.
Mm-hmm.
There's much more. There's, like I was telling Alice earlier, and I got to do more meditation so that I really learn to see somebody right in the beginning, where they're really at. I want to be able to do that so that I wouldn't present
Okay, but then, don't you have to sort of be in tune?
in tune with that, yeah, in tune with reality.
Or in tune with that person?
Well, it's all one, I think, so it would be just in tune, knowing something, a knowingness that would come. Because we're all one consciousness, right? So that then I would automatically know where they're at, or not in specifics, but at least have a sense of that this was all wrong for her. You know, that having a teacher, you know, like Ramana, was not her thing at all. I should be able to see that ahead of time and not put her through that, listening to Ramana and expressed very well. By the way, when I do play these tapes maybe over and over again, each time I hear it for myself, it's fresh, and it's never boring. To use that word, boring. I've heard that before. It's not like that.
You learned something from it.
Well,
Well,
You hear it.
I think it depends upon what kind of a tape you're playing. I mean, if you played something like this is inspiring, this is good.
What you heard today was
Right,
inspiring?
But when you play his life, I don't know. I mean, you hear once,
but I think
I don't
it's
know.
also what's expressed by hearing what that fellow Ramdas said was about it wasn't just about his life, but it was his realization how silent he was in Satsang, how when you hear that again and again and again, you realize it's all about silence, and you get it in a deeper sense. You hear it
but somebody,
again.
like I said before, somebody coming in the first time,
Yeah, well,
this is hard. Okay?
maybe it is. I have a sense. Does anybody have a sense that that tape that I played would be hard on somebody never hearing it before?
Which one?
Last Wednesday,
Last
when
one.
I played
No, that's so
Ramdas, yeah, I played.
It was hard to understand more the language part of him speaking in English. It was not all that clear.
Well,
really?
no,
And
no.
I played that because I think he is here.
That's the one that you
It's a
played.
different one.
No, I'm talking about the one that you played.